Close that. Let's try that.
Okay. Welcome to the July 26, 2021 Board of Education meeting. We'll convene and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mrs. Fox, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Dunaway is absent this evening. Okay, we have Mrs. Dahl.
Here.
Okay, Heatherly.
Here.
Patry.
Here.
Vice President Secor.
Here. And
We have quorum.
okay,
We're all in
thank you.
attendance. Okay.
1C, we're on approval of the agenda. Can I get a someone move for the approval of that? Or do you have anything you want to take out?
Well, I'll move so we can open discussion.
And I'll second. So we can open the discussion. Okay. Discussion open.
Yeah, I would like to move, just because I think it's important that we discuss it. New hires, Monroe Township donations and summer maintenance projects to outside of the consent agenda.
Was one I was going to take. So great. Any other requests?
I guess since I was not at the last meeting and there was a comment made when I watched the meeting back that we're going to do something with consent agenda. So are we going to keep it for this meeting until we convene and figure out what we're going to do about consent agenda?
Yes, and what the decision was is after checking board policy, there's a sentence in board policy that says you shall have a consent agenda. And so when that came up, that's a shall. So you have to address changing board policy if you wanted to go to that point, or you could do just what Ms. Dahl did this evening. You can take any item and move it to a new item, standalone agenda item. So you can make the consent agenda either as big or as small as the board wishes. So there wasn't any reason to do anything with the actual consent agenda format.
Okay, so until we do something to the policy, we'll continue in this
Yes.
fashion
Yes.
as we have been. Thank you.
Yes.
But if I may add, it also says the board shall use a consent agenda to keep routine matters within a reasonable time frame.
Yes.
So when we have something like the summer maintenance project, I don't know that that's a routine matter. Maybe we
Sure.
need to look at having a better description of what routine is so we can have those.
That's fine.
Okay. Because it does give examples, what routine matters are.
I'd move to add something to new business under item D for next work session.
Where is that, Mr. Patrick?
I would move to add something to 9D under new business to create 9D. And the heading would be next work session.
I'll second that.
The heading is next work session.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that, is a motion required to add that?
So,
Okay. I'll second that. I would agree.
that would become 9D, right? Okay. So. Is there anything else?
I have one. Well, I have one that I would have to get board approval to do it because I'm not supposed to revise the agenda of the board. But we found out that when we revised the agenda Saturday, that we made a revision to executive session that just showed up in the board view, but it did not show up in the description at the top. And so we actually have a second item that will be part of the executive session, which would be to discuss complaints against a public employee or official.
Okay, is that it? Ready for a vote?
If I can just clarify the motion, please. Approval of the meeting agenda, moving Monroe Township donations, maintenance projects, and new hires out of the consent agenda, as well as adding 9D to the next work session. Correct.
I believe, Mr. Stefanik, what you've indicated is that item 12C needs to be moved to be added and seconded as well. Is that what you're indicating?
If I may, please, I think Mrs. Fox's question needs to be answered first. What was it, Mrs. Fox? We were asking what, please?
So moving the 3 items out of the consent agenda, the
Uh-huh.
Monroe Township donation, maintenance project, and new hires, and then adding item 9D, which is all I referenced.
Okay, 9D, I think what you said,
And I don't see a 9D on here, so 9D to the next work session was what topic?
9D, the topic was, the title of 9D is next work session. And that is the agenda item. So if you go into and revise new business and make a letter D,
Okay, so right now I'm creating the motion, so I'm in the screen to
right?
just take the vote on the motion first before I make the agenda changes.
Okay,
Correct?
right,
Because
right,
until we make this vote to make the changes and
I
approve
believe so.
those,
right.
I can't go in and make those changes.
Right. The title of 9D is next work session.
Next work session,
Yeah.
okay.
That's the title. Mr. Patry, yes and no. 12C is part of the agenda that only the board sees. We have to put the reason for 12C also into 12A and continue the description of the actual motion in 12A.
And so then, because it's already in our agenda, it's already part of the motion, then just natural.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's a housekeeping
I'm with you.
revision. Yes,
Has that been updated? Can I refresh and see that?
not yet.
No, not yet, until we take the
So
vote
it's a
on the
little
motion, then I
refreshing.
can make the changes.
Okay, any more discussion? Ready for the vote? Are you ready,
Okay.
Mrs. Fox? Did you?
Okay, so I have Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
and Zakor.
Yes. Okay. Next item is 2A, Miami Valley Career Technology Center meeting minutes, committee reports.
Okay, so if I can just take a moment to make those changes, is that possible? Because I don't want to get it too
Absolutely.
ahead and then they're not.
Absolutely.
in there.
Take your time.
Thermostat down 4 degrees. So we'll see. We'll see if it works.
Helps. We want people passing it. I don't pass it.
This is the most people in this room in probably 15 months.
I know. Nice.
It's time to church.
Maybe that's the sign.
We need to run. Do I want to date the work session, August? Something,
It's scheduled August 10th right now.
10. So currently I have a new business. I've taken the new hires out. Added a work session item. The donation and the projects are now under the second area of new business. If you want to look at your agenda, let me know if that's coming up under the agenda items. See here, I guess I didn't. I think it should be accurate, but please let me know if there's something I'm missing, please. If you see.
Mine was correct.
So opening approval of the agenda, at that point, I'm just leaving that as is. Once the motion goes in there, you'll see. I don't know if it's in there yet.
Yeah.
Is it
mine-
saved? Okay.
It came out.
So the motion under opening approval of the agenda, please let me know if that is accurate. And if it's not, I can amend it.
It's correct to me.
So I'm going to look into the meeting.
The only thing I'd say is that the motion was made by me, not Ms. Dahl. Ms. Dahl requests to remove things from the consent agenda. It does not require a motion. It's just unilaterally made under our rules.
I think the reason why she put me down is because I motioned to approve it. And when I motioned to approve it, I also said I would like to remove those three things.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Then I guess we're not reflecting the amendment.
So would it be a second motion, Simon,
It's
for
fine.
your portion?
I think as long as the
of
minutes
ultimate
reflect,
approval?
as long as the minutes that you make reflect that the motion was made by Corinne and Joellen, and then that it was amended by me and seconded by Joellen, that's fine.
Okay.
Are
You
you
see
ready?
the technology's tricky. Okay. Yes.
Okay, so the next item is 2A, MVCTC meeting minutes.
I'll move.
Do we have to make a
This
motion?
one's
I
just
think we just
information
acknowledge them.
only.
Oh, okay. We don't have to accept it.
We acknowledge them.
Okay, and now item 3, superintendent's comments.
Chairman Zakor, I've got the third or fourth meeting in a row. I've got some new folks to introduce to the board. And these are all of the administrative variety. So these are some of the new administrators that we'll have at the district level. And we have some of our new building administrators as well. So go back here and get our group one at a time and bring them forward.
Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Dr. Lisa Tuttle Huff. She's our new Director of HR for the school district. And was here all day today, and her contract doesn't officially start until next Monday. So she's given us some bonus time in the office. So Dr. Huff, you like to say anything to the board?
It'll be exciting doing the HR piece of it. I like it. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How do you want us to address you, Dr. Huff? Or do you want
It's
us to
total
hide-
hub.
Tuttle Puff.
Yeah, for the last 36
Good,
years.
a nice word.
I want to make sure we get it right
Yeah,
from the
thank you,
beginning.
thank you.
Actually, we were gonna go that way, but we closed the door, so you can't get through it. one of our new administrators. This is Sarah Ramsey. She's our Exceptional Children's Coordinator. And Tipp grads. She's one of our Tipp grads and lives in the district, and her family is involved in the Tipp City School District currently.
Meet you guys. Thank you guys for having me here.
Congratulations, welcome.
Welcome.
We're excited to have you.
I'm excited to come here. Very excited.
I'm excited to have this new position for the district. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, pleased to announce new Tipp High School principal, Daniel Barnes. All right, he's found his red shirt already.
Purpose. I just wanted to say how excited I was to join the Tipp family. I look forward to guiding the high school toward the excellence that you all expect. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Daniel.
I know, I started. Hi, I'm Diane Forrest. I've already met all of you, but I'm here to introduce as on the agenda this evening, Jason Watercutter for Assistant Principal at the middle school.
Great. Welcome, Jason. Hello.
Thanks for the
Welcome.
opportunity. Look forward to working with all of you. So, it'll be a good time.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I came from Northridge too, so I'm glad you're here.
Yes. Thanks.
Anybody was wondering, there was not a beard requirement. You're hiring administrators, but it just so happened to,
It's the end thing.
yeah, beards are out there, so.
Okay.
Next on the agenda, we just have two informational items. We are getting ready to quickly turn into August and start approaching the beginning of the school year. So we did share with the board the open house schedule, the way it stands right now. Families will be getting informational letters from their buildings, and we'll also post this cumulative list on the website. So you see on here, the 10th, 11th, and 12th, we'll be doing freshman orientations at the high school by last name alphabetical order. On the 11th, we'll be doing a 6th grade orientation at Tipp Middle School. LT Ball is going to do a 4th grade parent meeting on the 16th. And you see on the 17th, the domino type timed out open houses. And so families that have children at more than one building will have time to get to the different open houses in the district. So we figured a half an hour stagger with how close our buildings are should be enough time to get from point A to point B and then take care of any number of children in your family.
Is there an update when class lists will be posted or anything different than what's been expected in the past?
Well, class lists, there was a conversation about the postings of class lists and privacy information. And so what's going to happen is in the letters that come out from our buildings, there will be the announcement about the class placement in the letter. So they'll get some building information and they'll get that one big piece of information is what class the child is going to be in for the school.
They won't have the classmates.
No, just the student.
In the old days, they used to put it right up on the door.
Right on the window. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
All right. And then the last piece there, again, opening day. Some people were surprised because of last year where the board delayed opening day because of the pandemic. And we got very near to starting after Labor Day. And so when we got back to what had traditionally been a Tipp City starting date of August 19th, I got some emails why are we starting so early? Why are we starting so early? But that was the norm before the pandemic hit. But I believe next year, I'll have to go back and check the calendars. In our calendar discussions this year, there was a survey put out, and just a little over 50% said that they would like to start closer to the end of August rather than the middle of August. So I believe the 22-23 calendar may start a little bit later than this year's calendar. So we have August 16th. We welcome our staff back. Grades 1 through 12 come back on August 19th, and kindergarten starts on August 24th. And I remember graduation day, so it's amazing that we're talking about the first day of school already. Summer went by very quickly. And one other piece of information, remote learning update has been a point of concern and or anxiety in the district. We did a survey, and as surveys go, I think we left it open possibly longer than most surveys. We left it open almost 6 weeks. And we even did a phone reminder for parents to send in the survey. And we just did not get the end number on return surveys or people actually saying, I'm 100% sure that I want to stay with remote learning. And so we didn't have groupings that would equate to a class size. And so we couldn't put any adult resources toward remote learning for this year. And at the same time, the state, as part of the budget bill, changed the rules about remote learning. We do not have the permissions we had last year during the pandemic. And so school districts cannot just offer remote learning unless the new provision is you have to declare a remote learning school. And so you would get a separate IRN number. And so said student, let's take an example, let's say a high school student. The high school student is not a member of Tipp New High School's roster anymore. They're in the roster of a remote school. And that all the data about student achievement, everything sticks with the new school that would be a remote learning school. I didn't feel comfortable even applying for one of those because we have less than 20 people in the entire district that have said they're 100% sure they want to stay with remote learning. And that's across 13 grade levels. And so it just doesn't even give you pockets to lock in on at any one grade level. We still have blended learning, but they changed the rules on blended learning as well. And the rules for blended learning are that it has to be primarily face-to-face learning, with remote learning being a supplement to the face-to-face learning. In the past, it could be any combination of face-to-face or remote. So it gave you the option to do primarily remote learning, but they put the word primarily in front of face-to-face learning in the new law. And so the folks that wanted remote for, let's say, health reasons, you were still going to get more than 50% of the time in face-to-face learning in a blended model. We still have credit flex, and we still have credit recovery type of online options for students. And so we put out in our last communication, contact your child's principal, and you can sit down for a planning meeting if you think you need one of those unique setups. And we're allowed to use remote learning individually. It's just not something you can offer out to the entire district under those formats. And those are currently in board policy, so no need to change board policy or any new permissions out there. Those have always been out there. Primarily, they've been used for somebody has surgery, somebody's going to be out for an extended period of time. You put in the educational options to help them stay current with academics until they're able to come back to school. But they can be used for this as well.
Is there any collaboration happening currently with the Miami County Public Health District about the use of masks? I sense that there's some growing anxiety among parents because, again, there's conflicting information in the media as far as should school districts expect students and staff to wear masks or not.
Yes.
I know originally, I think we hoped that we would not, but I feel like we are in a climate that's changing once again, right when we approach the beginning of school.
Right.
Can you speak to what's going on? And I suspect a lot of districts are hustling to get an answer right now.
Yes. I would love to just go like, this is definitely what we're gonna do, 4 weeks from now or 3.5 weeks from now. We're not at that point yet, and the Miami County Health Department is waiting, for more guidance from the state health department. As we had last year, we've got different medical entities saying different things.
Yes.
Some are saying that at least the elementary students should be in masks because there's no vaccine available, for the elementary folks. And then the conflict of information is there's some people saying anybody else that's not vaccinated should wear a mask, but there was new statute language that says you can't discriminate somebody based on the fact that they had a vaccine or they didn't. And so it'd be hard to say in a group of high school students, okay, you 3 have to put masks on, you 3 don't have to put masks on. That would challenge that recent ruling. And so calling the health department frequently, waiting for updates from the health department. We had a question twice. I had it during the day today, and I had it again as somebody arrived for the meeting. Will students be on different status levels for quarantine if they were vaccinated or if they weren't? And so that's a question I've got to ask the health department. I know in adult circles that there are some benefits for those that have received vaccines, and those that haven't don't know whether that's going to carry down into the school decisions or not. As we get new information, I won't wait for a board meeting. We'll be sending information out on the website and through our social media channels as soon as we get definitive answers. What I keep hearing is what I don't want to hear. It's up to each individual district. That doesn't make superintendents real comfortable when that's out there, because I get every answer and even some made up answers on email. Like we heard last year, don't do it unless it's a mandate. And other people said for the health of the students, you have to do it. And so, you have both messages coming from the community, and so it makes it difficult. And now 2 different versions from different medical entities makes it difficult as well. So we're all trying to decide. I've heard some school districts have already decided to mandate masks, and I've heard some school districts have chosen not to. We did announce to the board, and even that's changed, announced to the board that the CDC said that public transportation, you have to have masks on. So we might be in a situation where students that ride the bus will have to wear a mask in the morning and then again in the afternoon, and they'll just have to keep track of it, during the school day if we don't have masks during the school day. But now I found out that that's a CDC recommendation and it hasn't been mandated. I think it may be tied to some federal transportation dollars for like city transit. And so you'll see that you have to wear a mask to ride our bus, I think down in Dayton, on the public transit. But we're again trying to find out what that means for schools, as we move forward. So,
is there a way on the website to post questions that you receive? And even if you don't have an answer, say we don't have an answer, but we're investigating it, and sort of update the date as frequently as possible so that people don't feel like that, okay, there's no current information. The last time this was updated was a while ago. Something that shows the folks that are interested in the topic and getting the most current information to feel like that the most current information is available, even if there's no answer. Even to say there's conflicting answers and we're working to come up with an answer is better than silence.
Okay. And we had an FAQ section last year at the beginning of the pandemic, so we can just resurrect that format and we can start bumping questions there. That should be pretty easy.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. And we did, for those that want to know, we did put an updated date on the continuation of learning plan. It's still out there as a draft because again, we're just monitoring, what mandates and what recommendations come out, from the different public agencies. But we did revise that last week. And so it's not something that's just been sitting there since June. We have revised it. Somebody said they saw remote learning in that plan. That remote learning is what the high school and middle school went through last December. That's the remote learning that's inside of that plan. And that would have to be triggered by permission to do that kind of remote learning from the state should some health situation turn for the worse.
Any information on attendance at events? Is that just we don't have to worry about limiting that for football, band, soccer.
As of right now, there are no limits. That's what I hear, but again, I'm sure OHSAA will come out with things as we get closer to the start of the season. But I have not heard that we're under any percent limits or number limits at this time.
Was the governor going to release a statement today?
Somebody said he released a statement yesterday, and it was, school districts were strongly recommending this, but you need to make a decision based on your own community. And I'm waiting for somebody in Columbus to make something more definitive than that.
I understand. I appreciate that.
Okay, is there anything else, Mr. Stefanik? So we're ready to move on to item 4, citizen comments. And we'll start with Karen Steinecker.
I'll send you that. My handwriting's terrible.
Ms. Steinecker, have you reviewed the policies?
I have, it should be in that pile
It's back
there.
here.
Okay,
Yeah.
super. And let's see here, 1, 3, 6, this is perfect. You have 10 minutes.
Okay, excellent. I grew up in Tipp City. I am a proud member of the class of 95. And I've been watching what's been going on for quite a while, and I've been a little hesitant to get up here. I'm not normally a wave maker. I've watched you disregard a lot of great comments made, and I think a lot of the issues we have been well documented, so I'm not going to waste your time redocumenting stuff that we have already gone through. I'm going to try something new. Instead of telling you things I feel you've done wrong, I am going to set forth some things I think we can all do together to move forward and hopefully reduce the amount of anger that is currently festering in the board, in the community. It's not healthy for the district. It's not healthy for you guys. It's not healthy for our kids. We need to move forward. Firstly, I understand that feeling falsely accused is not fun. It's very debilitating. And I support anyone's right to investigate that and have that call, have the record set straight. I just ask that instead of using our children's money, that we would use our own personal money for those investigations. I think that would do so much in healing the void we have in our community right now. And I know that several of you ran on a platform of openness and fiscal responsibility. And I think that would just be a wonderful olive branch on the part of the board if that were used with private funds. I don't know the legality of that, so I'm not trying to get anyone break law or anything, but to investigate not using our kids' funds would be excellent. Secondly, I think it would be wonderful if the board could take a little time researching servant leadership. That way you guys can understand how to put the district and the children of the district ahead of your own agendas. The board, you guys are our foundation. You guys are what we build ourselves from, and you have the potential to be so wonderful. And the potential is here, but we've got to kind of realize where we are in line. And sometimes as a leader, we're last in line. And I would just, if there was anything I could do to help support that, I am 100% on that. But just remember that the kids come first, the district comes first, and our feelings and wants and needs, and they need to be last. And feel free, I'm happy to be part of that solution. Thirdly, I implore you to let go of your grievances with each other and with the community. The veiled threats, the finger pointing, they need to stop. Our kids don't need to see that. The vitriol between you guys, I'm just going to be really honest, when I watch online, it's toxic. I can feel some of your anger through the video. And our kids see that anger, and it spills into the administration, it spills into the teacher. It's like a waterfall, it just goes everywhere. That needs to stop. And as well in the community, we all need to work on working together for the kids. Let's stop throwing fits or getting in arguments on things that are kind of like, on par with parking spaces or citizen affiliations. Our children need to see positive conflict management happening in our school. The community has been trying to tell the board for over a year now that the house is on fire. And it feels like from our perspective, you guys are like, flames? What flames? There are no flames here. I don't know what flames you're talking about. And I understand that. Sometimes it's easier just to be like, we're moving forward, but sometimes we have to stop and say, oh gosh, we're on fire and this is a problem. So lastly, I want to offer you an olive branch. If we the community see positive change, we will notice. We're not out to get anyone. This is not a witch hunt. We just want the best thing for our kids.
So if we see, we need you to not only listen to what we're saying, we need you to act on what we're saying. We need you to stop having family members, potential sock puppets or whatever, making incendiary posts online when you don't like what we say. We need you to stop spending money on lawyers when you try to convince us that what we say is not true. Sometimes it feels like there's a lot of gaslighting going on. That's not healthy for you guys. It's not healthy for the community. It's not healthy for our kids. And our concerns are valid, and we just want you to acknowledge they are valid and work on them. I will happily be your loudest cheerleader. If I see positive changes, I promise that I will say that is a positive change and acknowledge it. And I want to leave you today with a mantra that I've heard a lot and I think is really important, and we should say it more often. It's a great day to be a Red Devil. We are Tipp, #together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Fox, are you keeping track of the 5 minutes?
I got it.
You are, okay, I didn't understand. Okay.
Pretty good timing. She was within about 15 seconds.
I didn't hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say 15 seconds and you said Red Devil and you walked off.
Sometimes things work.
That's it.
Next up is Don Watson. Mr. Watson, I think you're familiar with all the rules and I've spoken many.
Don Watson, I live at 335 West State Route 571. I'm a 1967 graduate at Tippecanoe, which is the best year.
They're all good.
They're all good. First, before I get started, I would like to commend, I can't say her name and I can't say her position, but on Saturday at 90-degree heat, one of our school employees was shoveling out and cutting weeds out of the Broadway Nature Center, I guess you would call it, which I give her many pats on the back for. Okay, I'm talking tonight about history. I would like to start out by basically talking about the David Coptic Memorial. This goes back to 1959. Tipp citizens were shocked this week to hear the death of Nevin Coptic, 46, a well-known Tippsidian. He became ill on Tuesday, was transferred to Miami Valley Hospital on Friday and died on Sunday from polio. He was a farmer, a leader in many organizations. He's a member of the Tipp City School Board for 11 years and served as 6 years as president. And passed away when he was president in 1959. He was basically in charge of building Broadway and Nevin Coptic elementary schools. I think it was because of his leadership and his son, David, that his wife and David's mother, Audrey Coptic, donated 22.4 acres of woodlands to be a memorial for David Coptic, which has never been dedicated, has slightly been used. I visited the site, it's grown up, overgrown. You can't even approach it, which doesn't sit well with me, or I don't think the way Tipp City citizens expect. We've had 8 school boards, if you multiply 33 years since she gave it in April of 1988. I think that we need to make it on a fast pace, that we could put a driveway in and a memorial plaque in his memory that Audrey Coptic gave us the land for. I would volunteer my labor. If you would rent a backhoe and a truck, I would dig the driveway and put the gravel in. So I would just hope that you guys could take some action so even his classmates of 1963 could see the memorial in action. They're right at 74, 75 years old now. So you start thinking about these things. David went in the Peace Corps. He was a student council president when he was in school. He never made it home from the Peace Corps. Sadly, they've never found out why. He basically vanished on an ocean liner coming home from Italy. So thank you very much. I did find a poem that says to Dad, and I won't read the whole thing, but it's in the Birch Bark by Patsy Coptic, which was his sister in 1959, and she graduated in 1960. So I would like her to see that we're doing something with the Coptic woods in her lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Thank you.
I did make a copy so you can all have. It shows. Copy it out.
Resource. Okay, the next on the list is Kathy Bone.
Hi.
Mrs. Bone, you know the rules, I think?
Definitely know the rules. I was glad to see the censure document pulled out of the consent agenda at the work session and voted on to go to the attorneys. I believe the concerned citizens group and their leader or leaders really want to continue on this path. It can be eye-opening. We'll either find out if the accusations and rumors are true or are they false. Then everybody can move on. I will say I'm disappointed in a couple board members and a lot of teachers for all their disrespectful behavior during this time. And as I've said many times, I'm never going to agree with all 5 of you ever, but I don't want to, because that's what it's all about. I don't want a rubber stamp board in here. I don't want board members to just say, hey, we're going to spend the taxpayers' money, boom, 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 yes, 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 and never debate it. And even though, as somebody alluded to, this board can be a little dysfunctional at times, get a little rowdy, but I don't think the citizens really see all that you guys do. And I do see that, and I appreciate that. And I wish that some of the concerned citizens would get on the board website, go back to the January meetings, see where you guys have volunteered for all these committees, because you don't just come into the work sessions. You don't just come to the board meetings. You have other things to do. You have the policies. If they'd open up the policies, not the handbook the kids come home with, but the policy book, and look through where you guys have made those changes, you've updated those policies, that's tedious work. And you need to be recognized for that. And I noticed on the website today, there are only 5 job openings now in the Tipp City School District. All those administrative jobs, all those teaching jobs, they've been filled. You guys have done a magnificent job doing that. And I hope that the concerned citizens will welcome these people. They'll meet them, they'll greet them, they'll welcome them with open arms. And as this attorney thing is going on with this censure, I hope the concerned citizens group can move to something else right now. Let that work through the process and move on to something else, because I was at a Tipp Pride meeting this week and only 5 people bothered to show up. The stadium sitting down there, not done. So maybe this concerned citizens can now, their leaders, whomever, can jump on board, get these citizens out to help and rally and get some more donors and get this stadium done for the kids, for the school. This doesn't look good when we have other people coming here and running up gravel up to the concession stand. We need this done. So maybe while this process is getting done, the concerned citizens, who I know they have a big beef, but let's go working on that. Let's work on something else. And acknowledge that this board, no matter how dysfunctional, they have done a lot of work. They have done a lot of good things for the school district. And I appreciate every one of you. Even though I don't agree with all of you, I appreciate all the work, all the time, all the effort you put into it. And I hope the citizens can kind of calm down a little bit, see what's going on, and then let's work on some other things that really, really need to get done. They do. The stadium needs to get done, and we need to work on it. So with that, I'm saying thank you for your service. You were all voted here onto these seats. If people want to challenge those Elections at election time, let them, but for now, you all belong here. I deserve to hear your voice. You deserve to hear my voice. I want you to stand up and be a voice for the community and for the kids. And just remember, you do have supporters out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Alison Potts. Ms. Potts, are you familiar with the,
Yes, I read them this evening.
I'm sorry?
I read them this evening.
Okay.
My name is Allison Potts. I have lived in Tipp City for about 10 years now. My husband and I moved here from Kettering because of the school district and because of the community that we so much wanted to be a part of. We have invested in this community in real estate, and my kids are currently in middle school and in high school. I will say that within the busyness of our lives, we hadn't really been very involved in the actions of the school board during our time here, but really started paying attention last year when the decisions were made related to open enrollment. We felt like the assessment and the analysis of that decision, as well as the communication related to that decision, was not done well. And the struggle for me has been that I have not seen great progress in the ability to learn from the mistakes that you have made, as we all make mistakes as humans and make progress towards being a better board. I would agree that there is dysfunction, but diversity is important, right? We don't want all of the same people up here with the same opinions, but I do, and I think our community expects that people treat each other with respect and do so in a professional manner and in a way that shows a positive influence for our children. I appreciate Karen's stance by focusing on the positives and by focusing on what we can do together, because that can occur. And I strongly feel that in order to do that, there needs to be a lot of work done related to the relationships on this board and your relationships with the community. I think it was at the last board meeting when I watched somebody spoke about the trust that has been lost, and that is significant. And once trust is lost, it takes a lot more to regain it than just a few small actions. I've written multiple emails over the last few months in regards to the observations that I've had with behaviors of the school board, but I continue to see the rules that you have said that you would follow not followed. Specifically last month in the school board speaking during citizen comments, felt like that was disrespectful to the person that had spoken, whether you believe what they say or not. I've also shared my concerns or observations related to the lack of action. I hear a lot of talk and it takes a really long time. It's difficult to watch the board meetings in one sitting. I feel bad for you guys sitting here for as long as it takes, honestly. And what I feel like is there's so much talking and so much just feels like wanting to hear yourselves talk that you don't get to the actions that we need you to take. Specifically related to the turnover of our administrators, I am very excited to see people wanting to work in our community. I was a little worried, to be honest, considering the media publications that have been out there. So we're really excited to welcome those administrators into our school. But another recent example of the inability to respond is around the TCA censorship request. They provided a date that they would like to have a response to, and you guys weren't able to meet that, which is disheartening. So it is our teachers that create the foundation for this school and why I continue to live within this district. There appears to be a lack of leadership and a lack of accountability. And I really hope that as you guys are working through the training that will be coming up shortly, that is resolved in a way that you can start acting and putting steps in place that make a difference for this community. In addition, I would encourage you to get out of the weeds. It's not your job to run these schools. It is Mr. Stefanik and the principal's jobs to run the schools. Another example of getting in the weeds was at last month's board meeting when you spent somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes talking about a motion to live stream these meetings and or to go to the schools. I think it's a good point to go to the schools. There's lots of ways to find a compromise. Say, this is our vision as a board. You have lots of people behind you to do the work. ask them to bring you a decision document with the recommendations and the costs that it will take. It's not your decision to go back and forth and to do the work. So please let the people that work in this district do their jobs. Thank you. And stop trying to do it for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Carrie Melton, I believe.
I thought it was a sign-in sheet. I didn't.
Or Moulton, I'm sorry, I think it's Moulton. Or Melton. Oh,
No,
what is it?
she's here. She said she thought it was a sign-in sheet. She doesn't have a comment to that.
Oh, okay, very good.
That was my comment.
Very brief.
I didn't even turn the clock on yet.
Yeah. Okay, next is G Brown.
Here's down the bottom of the line.
No, this people scratched out.
A lot of you won't like some of the things I got to say. The picture that's there shouldn't be there, back in the books. Shows it picking up leaves. Should be a picture of a machine that was here, built here in Tipp City, the very first leaf pickup machine. Built here in Tipp City. Where's the city of Tipp City?
Mr. Brown, before you begin,
Yeah.
have you ever had a chance to look over do you know anything about the participation? Have you read that or did someone give it to you or?
I have tried to stay out of a lot of that. I've only been here in Tipp City 81 years.
Oh,
See, born and raised here.
well, we're trying to be
Class of
consistent, that's all.
58, I graduated with. I think it's time for a lot of the people to get out of the school system, the school to get out of the city park, because it don't belong to the school. Get rid of that synthetic turf that's out there. Because I read articles in a government magazine back in 92 or 93 about how it could cause cancer, skin cancers and lung cancers in the people that play sports on it. That was a long time ago, and they still investigate it to find out if that's true. I worked in the government base, had high security clearance. We need a lot of the people that's around doing stuff to get out of the school system. Let the schools be run by the teachers, and the principals, the superintendents. My sixth grade teacher was the principal of the castle, Mr. Detsley. I went to him because I got in trouble watching out the window the construction of the Broadway school building. And he got on, chewed me out doing that. And when I tried to explain to him and a couple other people what I was watching and seeing, I was told, you're just a kid. You don't know what you're talking about. I grew up in a business with all kinds of contractors. I appreciate name out with them. And I was watching them put the footer in for the north wall of that building that they've had some trouble with. They were cheating on it. Been around Tipp City a long time. Kathy Mahone over there is my cousin. Her mother was a Snyder. They lived right down here on Main Street, 2 houses east of the funeral home. There's been a lot of Snyders involved in a lot of different things. One of them was involved in testing the fuel that put the first man on the moon. We brought him back off of it. You know, so there've been a lot of people involved in it. I was named after my grandfather, one of them, George Snyder. But there's been a lot of different people and a lot of different people in this town. My dad served on the city council for 4 terms. He helped set up this, I shouldn't say charter government we got. I got other terms for it than that because I don't like the way they operate. I think it's wrong. The school system should stay out of the parks. They don't belong in the park, running it or trying to run it. They shouldn't be. They should stay out of the donation bit from all these so-called people that supposedly donating money, because most of them's not. There was one other question I wanted to ask somebody, if he realized that Nevin Coptic, Audrey Coptic, she donated that land out there, should have all stayed for the school system instead of being traded off for the place on their Professor Frederick. He had a sister that was teacher at Tipp City Schools. A lot of people, very few people know that. Martha Nossinger, lived right down the road. Dairy farmer, her husband was. That was them Coptic's sister. People didn't know that. And that's a shame because she was my fourth grade school teacher, but she was one of the best teachers I had. And I've seen a lot of time spent at Nevin Coptic's farm, on the farm machinery, working on it. My aunt ran around with Audrey. The two of them was super, super busy in the churches. Because the Coptics helped set up a lot of the churches around the countryside. People don't understand that, but they don't realize it. And I would love to see them fix that woods out there so that it is with a couple walkways around to it for the senior citizens and for the kids to go out through there and see the animals and stuff in it. So take care.
Thank you,
I'll get
Mr.
out of here.
Brown.
I hope he heard me when tell about Coptic's sister.
Mr. Watson.
He probably didn't know that, did you?
I did. Her name was Martha something.
Yeah. School teacher.
All right, that concludes citizen comments. And now we're on to 5A, president's comments. Our president, Mrs. Dunaway's not here, so I'm filling in as the presiding officer. And I didn't have anything rehearsed or written down. I'm going to kind of wing it. First of all, I want to say it's hard to believe that schools are opening next month. I mean, it's just flying by. And I think we're all excited about, hopefully, it's going to look like a normal school year. I mean, hopefully. And so that'll be something that we'll all be enjoying. And I also want to say it's an exciting year. It really is an exciting year for this district because this is the first time, I believe, if I'm wrong, someone correct me, but I believe it's the first time this district's going to have a director of human resources. Does anybody have? And also a director of curriculum, and the first time we have an Office of Exceptional Children's Coordinator. And that OEC parallels with the ODE, Office of Exceptional Children, and it encapsulates our students that are on such as IEPs, 504s, and at the state level, it even encapsulates the gifted children as well. And the reason I'm very excited about this is because we have a 13%, roughly 13% student population, and that's over 300 kids that go into that Office of Exceptional Children category. And that's a lot of children. That's more than a graduating class. And so this is really kind of new, exciting beginnings. By the way, that was, those three positions were as a result of the vacancy in the assistant superintendent. So it was a reorganization, and I want to commend all the interviewing team and Mr. Stefanik who put these new changes together to try to move forward and have, see how it goes. And so that's just, I think it's very exciting. And then I just also want to thank all the teachers and the administrators and the staff and the office workers who are gearing up for the new school year. And then finally, I just want to say, I've been at all these meetings, haven't missed one, and I greatly appreciate the decorum and the tone. It really means a lot to me. Thank you. Appreciate it. And that's it for President's comments. Treasurer's report, item 6A, Mrs. Fox.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the monthly financial
Oh, I'm
report.
sorry. Thank you, Dawn.
Okay.
I'll second. I'll second.
Okay, not a whole lot to say about June, other than glad the fiscal year is over. It's been a tough one. I'm incoming treasurer, so I wasn't here the whole fiscal year to experience all the ups and downs. Of course, I am a Tipp resident and I have a child here, so I hear bits and pieces, but as far as the details on the budget and so forth, you know, we hope next year to be better, of course. Comparison to last year, we had a little bit lesser funding last year than this year. In June and particularly, we did have the settlement. We had a settlement increase on just some tax settlement. We were looking at a property there, which so on the revenue side, we had a little bit more income there. One being from Arbogast on their property. Thought that was a good settlement we received. And then also the ESC, so in the other category, we did get some refunds. So we always set up that foundation payment at the beginning of the spring or in the beginning of the year, excuse me. And then as the payments go out, then we true up at the end of the year. So actually this month we received $122,000 from both ESCs. So that was good. I want to make sure this is if we heard that piece. All of you heard that piece. Expenditure side, we pretty much were on track with the last few years, pretty much sit at the same amount that we have in the past 2 years. So just happy to be getting the fiscal year closed and starting a fresh one. And I'm still working with Dave Stevens a little bit to make sure all that goes smoothly, which we're about done. And anyway, I'm anxious to get to know all of the new administrators as well and start talking budgets and so forth. So we have a new group, and then me being a new treasurer, then I'm hoping that, you know, we'll be able to start off the new school year. So
That's exciting.
pretty much as far as my, any hot topics, as far as the month of June, that's kind of where we're at. So,
I noticed again, the expenses this month for our health insurance exceeded the amount that we brought in. So that's 2 back-to-back months, but I know that we have enough to cover that, but it's something that I think we should all be watching.
yes, we are. We do plan to, now that we've got the HR director beginning, she and I talked today, we're going to get soon with our health insurance group and be able to get these rates. So we can start sharing that with our staff. And I'm just kind of fingers crossed that it's not anything too excessive. So that's kind of where we're at. And as soon as we get those numbers, I'll definitely report that, what's going to be coming up.
Will that reflect anything on the vision? Vision key.
I know that you were, as far as adding that to the plan. Not sure if they would want to bring that in outside the negotiating year. As far as bringing the plan in. Mark, wouldn't that be something we would negotiate to bring in a vision policy? Because currently we just have the medical and the dental policy for the staff. So that would be a negotiating thing. Yeah, as far, and I could discuss it with UMR if they have something that.
If they have a package.
But I want to think that, yeah, that might be something that we agree on with the union before we brought in a new plan for the staff. But we'll definitely look for that in the future. That's something that's on my mind. So.
Okay.
And Ms. Fox, this report's not audited, is that right? It's just the first month that you've done, correct?
So just the June report itself going on to, I just pulled the state software figures and consolidated into a spreadsheet.
The reason for my question is a monthly question I ask is I don't approve reports that aren't audited, so I'm just.
Okay, yeah, and Dave did explain that to me, and I understand.
All right, thank you.
Unfortunately, the auditing process is usually a year past, and they pull certain board reports and so forth when they come in, but they kind of they'll audit after the fiscal year completes.
Yep.
So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on monthly financial report? We for a vote?
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patrick,
Abstain.
and Zakor.
Yes. Okay, next item is the approval of the ORC 5705.1 purchase order certification then and now fiscal year 21 for June 2021.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Is this PLP, is that what we paid for the whole school year last year for that program?
No, the total expense was in excess of $400,000.
So was this like a quarterly payment that we made for it?
This was a true up for the second semester. We changed some classes and we changed some students who were enrolled in the program. So they look at the number of classes you took and then they send out the final bill.
So what's that 108 coming from? Just said the final?
Yes, that's the final payment.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the year-end amount. So we paid off PLP.
So we're getting the
Yeah.
bill.
So they were due in services, but they were processed, late, the POs in because the bill came late. Yeah, and in addition to the other item there, the rental that's listed. We had gotten a bill late and the purchase order was not entered for the amount, which I don't like having to bring these to the board for approval. So if we had known, we knew fees were coming, but and I've been working with the secretaries and I'll continue to do so. As the bills come in, it's nice to have the money encumbered prior to, but there are occasions where we're not exactly sure of a cost. And so when, if they put the purchase order in and we have to pay it, and we have the funds to pay it, then I will authorize to pay the bill. So these two are obviously bills that have to be paid. And, so we'll just follow the process, but in the future, I'd like for these then and nows to not be on our agendas.
All right.
So we'll just see. Yeah, we'll work on that.
So do we have any more discussion on item 6D? Are we ready for a vote? I think we're ready, Mrs. Fox.
Okay, Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mr. Patrick,
Abstain.
and Vice President Zakor.
Yes. Okay, now item 7A, library trustee appointment process. We recommend approval of the procedures to appoint library trustees. Can I get a first?
I'll move.
Second?
So is this the final reading of this policy?
I think Mr. Patrick might.
Yeah, I'll second it for the purposes of discussion.
Oh, Ann seconded it already.
Okay, well then I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
I didn't know if you were asking a question for a second or if you were seconding myself, sorry.
I'll second it. It doesn't matter, but what was your question again?
I just want to know, I know we had some revisions.
Right.
And so is this the first reading of this policy? Or, oh no, I'll let you talk, Simon, and just tell us where we're at.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I'm handing out. So we had a special meeting in January 14th, 2021 with the Tipp City Public Library Board trustees related to the appointment process. As a result of that, I prepared revisions to the draft of the policy, the joint policy I had prepared, and emailed that to their board and our committee on January 18th. They, this June, President Bill Wendell for the Library Board of Trustees emailed that they had essentially approved the Board of Education library policy dated January 18th that we sent, but they had some suggestions. And I made some proposed revisions to that are not reflected in the policy of January 18th. that is attached here as a PDF. So specifically, the first thing is their first request in their email to us on June 11th was that paragraphs 2 and 3 are redundant, and they suggested that we combine them. And I reviewed that comment, and while they're similar, they're not exactly redundant. They serve two different purposes. Paragraph 2 states, quote, at the expiration of the deadline for submission of applicants, comma, both the Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees and the Board of Education shall exchange a list of timely submitted applications, comma, regardless of their conforming with any other requirements, period. And 3, within 3 business days of the expiration of the deadline for submission of applications, comma, the Board of Education shall deliver to Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees all of the timely submitted applications collected, comma, regardless of their conforming with any other requirements. The first is that we're exchanging a list, not the actual applications. And then the third is that we, the Board of Education, delivering to Tipp City the ones we have received. And so they serve different purposes in that 2 also obligates the Public Library Board of Trustees to submit to us their list. And so removing one of them removes a function that it serves. The next, so I respectfully would suggest that the board just leave it the way it is. The next suggestion they had is on paragraph 13, they requested that we remove, quote, executive, end quote, and remove the Board of Trustee, quote, end quote, to reflect the party's intention to meet. And so on that, I reviewed it and.
Excuse me, Mr. Packey, what is that on 13? You said remove the executive?
So there in paragraph 13, if you look at the PDF that's on the minutes or the agenda,
Okay.
on that paragraph, there is reference to, quote, an executive director, end quote. They wanted us to remove the executive. And they also wanted us to remove Board of Trustees. When I reviewed that, I understood what they were trying to indicate, I think, based on that, but I had a slight revision to their revision. And so based on my notes that I kept contemporaneously with the discussions, the intent of the parties was that the executive director was going to meet with the superintendent so that the Board of Education and the trustees aren't mired in this day-to-day thing, and that the executive director of the Tipp City Public Library would meet with the superintendents, the schools, to make sure that we have institutional memory related to this policy. And so based on that, what I did is I just left it the way it was, but I removed the Board of Trustees, and I just said the executive director of the Tipp City Public Library versus the Board of Trustees, because it's not for the Board of Trustees to me, it's really the executive director. The other change I made to this that you have in your hands that's not reflected in the PDF was, for consistency, it wasn't requested in their email, but technically I believe it's the Tipp City Public Library, not the Tipp City Library. And so I switched all references to Tipp City Library to reflect Tipp City Public Library. And so other than that, there weren't any revisions to the PDF, but I would move to amend the motion to approve the one I've just gone over with everyone. And to summarize the revisions is, number 1, I believe that 2 and 3 are not redundant, but serve 2 purposes and should remain based on their request. Now that's already reflected in our original policy. Number 2, on paragraph 13, I did revise it to reflect that the executive director of the Tipp City Public Library would be meeting with the superintendent and remove the Board of Trustees. The third revision is that for consistency, we refer to it as the Tipp City Public Library document. Based on those revisions, I would move that to amend the motion to approve the one I've just shared, and that reflects the revisions I've just stated.
So the one that's in here is already the approved policy, or we never approved a policy?
So you never acted on it.
We never acted on it.
No,
Okay, so would this have to do the whole thing where we have to hear it 3 times and then it becomes
That's my
policy?
question.
Um,
Is this a first read?
If you consider it a policy, if it's a procedural document, then you can finalize it today. I mean, that's, if you wanted to actually go into policy, then we'd have to contact Neola, give it a number, and actually make it part of policy. If it's more of an administrative guideline, that this is the way we're going to do business, then it's ready for approval now. I think the reason it waited this long is typically in the library sequence. Things don't happen until the fall. And so after you discussed it in January, I think I even remember people saying at the joint meeting, well, we've got time, because it doesn't happen until the fall, typically on their annual rotation. But as we see tonight, we had a surprise resignation in the spring. And so we have somebody to appoint, this evening.
So if the purpose of this is, one of the purposes is to remain that institutional memory, which do you think makes more sense? It being a policy? Will it get lost being a guideline?
Yeah.
Or what is your recommendation?
They're all part of board docs. So, if you just put it in, you see when you click at the top, you've got policies, administrative guidelines, and forms. And so it would be part of our record if we just put it in there. And you could tie it to, I don't know which one right now offhand, but you could tie it to an existing policy. If there was something out there about board governance or something like that, you could tie it to an already existing policy. And then it would have a connection in the policy document. So somewhere in the zeros or the 1000s, I'm sure there's something that, we talk about governance procedures, and this could be an administrative guideline under that.
Simon, are you okay with renaming it a procedure rather than a policy? I know to this point we've called it a policy.
Yeah.
The way I was, I guess, envisioning this, and maybe I'm missing something here, is that we would approve that this is going to be the policy. It's not approved officially. I guess for the purposes of the first read, this revised copy would be the first read, and then we have a second read of the policy. But I'm not sure. I guess I'm hearing you say you don't think that we can do that. So.
No, you definitely can. If you wanted something to be finalized tonight, that would not meet the policy guideline, and so it would have to be something else, not a policy. If you are okay with it rolling to the August work session before it gets finalized, then you could do the first read tonight, the second read at the August work session.
I guess my feeling is there's nothing preventing us from approving. I think we already have approved the replacement, and so for the library's board of trustees, and so really this, in my opinion, it's obviously ripe for decision, but I don't think it's an urgent matter. I think that, to me, having a first read of the revised version I'm suggesting would make sense, and then having the approval of the subsequent meeting would make sense to me.
So if this becomes the first read, Mr. Stefanik, then when's the second and the final vote?
If it's the board's pleasure, you could take action on it at the work session in August. Or if the board was
As
more.
the second read and then action? This is the first read.
Yeah, it'd be the
It's a
second
policy.
read, and once you have the second read, then you call the vote.
I-
So you could do that, or you could wait till the next general meeting in August, which would be the 20th of August, which I think still beats the library process by a good month or two, I think.
I don't think that we have to have this approved as a policy before we approve a trustee. I don't think
No,
one
not
has to,
this.
so we can, it's not gonna delay any trustee approvals.
No,
Right.
not this summer one, because again, everybody believes that on the regular rotation, things happen in the fall,
So
closer to
it's
the
just a
winter.
matter of, do we want this to be a policy or a guideline?
I'm personally in favor of it being a policy. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then I just wanted to add a comment to Mr. Patry. If you look at paragraph 6, one thing that was the springboard to all of this discussion in the very beginning was the Ohio Revised Code. And it states, number 6, the Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees selection of candidates to submit for appointment shall be made consistent with this policy, consistent with Ohio law and pursuant, etc. Would it be prudent to put that RC number in there, or at least at the bottom of our policy?
I think you put it in the second paragraph on the front page. the ORCs at the end of the second paragraph on the first page, section
Well, that's-
3375.
Is that it, the whole thing, section 3375.15?
I don't know.
Seems
I
right.
mean, is that that's it, 3375, okay.
Not to mince words, but it's my understanding that a policy sets the practice and then the procedure outlines the steps. So the practice is that the Tipp City Board of Education will approve the appointment of the Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees, which has been the expectation and has been the practice all along. We've been doing that. And then for whatever reason, there was a blip, and then we came to the conclusion that we needed for institutional memory to write down what those steps would be so that future boards of education would understand what the expectation will be. So I'm personally okay with a statement of the policy, which is we approve the appointment of the Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustee appointments. And then these are the steps of the procedure of how that goes about.
So say it again, you want a policy?
A policy is just a statement of intent of what we do. What is our behavior? The
So-
behavior is we approve their.
Right, so you don't want to have this move forward as a policy. You would like to make some other kind of like statement that says, and then this becomes like a AG for that statement.
I'll go along. If you want to call it a policy, that's fine. If you want to call it procedure, if you want to call it administrative guidelines, I don't have any problem with the content because it does outline the steps. So I'm not arguing in that for or against. I'm just making a statement.
So Mr. Patry, you've been the closest to this language. When we started out, what did we use? The Shaker Heights template, I think. Was that this springboard to this?
I think so.
So, and you pretty much have owned the processing of it. So what is your thinking, please?
So to answer that, it's probably some historical context of the discussions, how we came to this policy. First time, we held a work session to discuss what our procedures and policies would be related to the appointment to comply with the statute. Based on that, Mr. Stefanik provided the board with a few different policies from other school districts. During that work session, the board made some decisions related to things they liked about those policies and things they didn't. And it was requested, and I volunteered to do, is to kind of go through those, remove the sections we didn't like, and add sections that we thought were useful for past practices that historically have occurred in the Tipp City community. That generated the initial appointment policy that was then shared at the special meeting between the Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees and the Tipp City School District that occurred on January 14th. There were discussions between the library and the school district boards as to what we felt should be revised. And based on those notes, then I drafted and emailed the pertinent individuals for the library and the school district a proposed draft of what the policy would look like on that Monday, January 18th, 2021. June of this year, I was provided suggested revisions. I've provided my response to those. I feel that this should be a policy to ensure institutional memory. And I think that what should occur is that my suggestion to the board is that we go forward with what I've provided and then treat what I've provided as the first read today. Or if we wish, we can wait to the next work session and treat that as the first read. But what I provided us today is my recommendation. I don't have much else to add to that.
If we go the direction of a policy, I'm okay with the revisions that you outlined as it being the first read. So that's
Sounds good.
not the motion.
So we don't even need a vote on that, right? We just discussed it and it's a read, right?
Well, I would move to treat what I've provided as the draft that is being introduced as a first read, versus the PDF. And what we'll need to do is we'll need to upload that, Ms. Fox, to Word Docs. I can email it to you right now. No, I can't email it to you right now.
So
But
I can load
you
it.
can load it with,
We can
scan it.
So the current motion, the only thing I did, recommend approval of the procedures to appoint library trustees, approving the given amendments by Mr. Patry. Right, we're approving your amendments tonight? What you've provided?
Revisions.
Revisions?
Because you wrote the original one that's in here, correct, Mr. Patrick?
Approving the given revisions by Mr. Patry.
I would just say, move to approve draft of proposed library board policy or for first read for draft of July 26th, 2021. Versus draft of January 18, 2021.
Okay, I'm sorry, the first date, recommend approval of the draft.
Of July 26, 2021
Okay,
versus draft of January 18, 2021.
and this is called the library trustee appointment.
Titled Appointment of Tipp City Public Library Trustees.
Board of Trustees.
Yes, Board of Trustees.
So in the recommended, not to quibble over words, but the recommended action listed as a procedure. The attachment is listed as a policy. So let's just, are we agreeing that's a policy?
Yeah.
So
First
with the
read.
amended language and the amended motion that Simon made to approve it as the first read of a policy, I'll second that motion.
So I had Corinne, oh, well, I had this motion with, it wasn't Corinne first and
that was the main
That was just
motion,
to open up the discussion.
and then it was amended.
So I'm amending the motion, but I still have Corinne and Ian.
Yeah, so you have the main motion, which is first Dahl, second Zakor. Then you have an amended motion, which is made by myself and seconded by Ms. Heather.
Okay,
And so-
I only have one motion currently, because I went into the original motion because we didn't have a vote. It doesn't like me, it doesn't want me to move on without making a vote. So for me to hit save, I need to have the motion, or the vote, excuse me. So I've amended the current motion.
And not to add more, I don't want to be in the weeds on this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we're supposed to be voting on things in old business, are we?
It was listed as action, so I mean,
All right.
I just have approval. So we're recommend approval for draft appointment of the Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees. The approved read of July 26th versus the draft of January 18th.
Would you repeat that one more time, please, Mrs. Fox?
Recommend approval for the draft of the appointment of Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees as the approved read.
It's the first read of the policy.
As the approved first read. Policy. What being July 26th, 2021 versus the draft of January 18th.
So what I'm going to do, Ms. Fox, is I'm going to email you right now the language. You just need to copy and paste. If that makes it easier for you.
Will that make,
I'm not in my email, but I will open it.
will that make it easier for you or more complicated, in your opinion, Mrs. Fox?
Well, it would be easier if he can just read it to me again, what I need to
So let's-
change, but
Let's try to do
since
that.
I'm not copying and pasting it in the screen.
Okay.
Tell us when you're ready and he'll read it off to you.
I'm ready. I just, with what I have here, I can amend that where I want quickly get this done. Apologize.
No problem. I'm just gonna give it to you in writing. So it's easier.
Okay. Or, then I'll repeat it when we're. got it. The software typically puts in a generic motion, okay, based upon just prep of the agenda. So it's always has something like stored in there.
So what this
And
is,
I'm always revising that, so I apologize.
so what the motion is gonna say is motion to approve draft of policy for appointment of Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees of the July 26, 2021 draft versus the January 18th, 2021 draft as a first read of the policy. So we follow your motion to approve draft of policy.
I have recommend approval, is that okay? Recommend approval. You want motion to approve?
That's fine,
That's fine, motion to approve draft.
but that's kind of how you would just follow here. And then, so it'll be 1, 2, 3.
Back to the question about the board about acting on a first read. What your motion is that you're acting to substitute today's draft for the January draft. And so then it becomes the draft and then you don't act on the first read. Okay.
So our action is to update the draft is the action. Got it.
And while we're updating that, folks that are watching by the live stream, we have received word that we know that the lens is a little bit out of focus. We've done what we can do technology-wise while the meeting is going on. So we apologize for the blurred view, but we'll have it fixed for future meetings.
As long as it makes me look thinner.
It makes you look blurry. That's what I can tell you. That's what I saw.
Okay, motion to approve draft of policy for the appointment of Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees, the July 26, 2021 draft versus the January 18th, 2021 draft as a first read of policy. I have Dahl motioning and then Ann Zakor. Vice President Zakor.
Are we ready
Is that
for,
then we can take a vote. if
are
you're
we ready for a vote? We're ready.
All right, Dahl,
Yes.
Zakor,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
and Patry.
Yes.
Okay. Next item is new business number 8, consent agenda items. Now, I need to refresh there. The ones we pulled out, where are they going? Are they after?
They're done in new business.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's address number 8, new business consent agenda items. Approval of, oh, excuse me. Oh, sorry. Approval. Yeah, approval of the consent agenda items. I'll move.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, was it?
First, Heatherly, yes, first by Mrs. Heatherly, second by Mrs. Dahl. And no discussion here, so when you're ready, Mrs. Fox, we'll take the vote.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes. Okay, item number 9, new business. Library trustee appointment.
I'll move.
I don't think we're voting on anything, are we?
These are action items.
Oh, okay.
I'll second then. Well, let me read it first. Number 9, new business library trustee appointment. Are you ready?
Sorry, yeah, I was just trying to make sure who motioned. When I'm not looking, I
Well,
hear the voices and then I
I'll read it and then.
Thank you.
Okay. Recommend approval of the following Tipp City Library Board of Trustee nomination. Judith Dienst, I'm not sure, Dienst, to fill the unexpired term vacated by Matthew Tarzinski.
I'll move.
I'll second.
I believe we have guests.
Okay. Okay, first by Mrs. Dahl, second by Mrs. Heatherly. Discussion.
Yes, hello again. I'm Bill Wendell. I'm the current president of the Tipp City Public Library Board of Trustees. I would like to introduce Judy Giants. She's a wonderful person. She is relatively new to the city of Tipp City, but she has moved around a lot as part of the military family and has volunteered at libraries all across the country and for different capacities. And we really think that that experience, among other things, is going to be really valuable as an addition to our board.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm looking forward to helping in any way possible. You guys have a wonderful library and I want to help keep it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, and also I'd like to invite, assuming you do approve her, I'd like to invite a representative from the board to come to our next meeting to the official swearing in ceremony.
Do you have the time on that yet, Mr. Wendell?
August 12th.
August 12th, meeting
6:30.
starts at 6:30 p.m. in the library.
August 12. What day is that?
The
Thursday.
Thursday. At what time, please?
6:30.
6:30. Okay, at the library. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so any discussion?
If I volunteer to go to that meeting, can you or Teresa take care of that?
Yeah.
I'm unavailable to be there as well.
You are not
I
available.
am not available.
And I need
Ms.
to.
Dunaway's not available either. They were the two library reps. And so I was going to ask the other three if there was interest in or availability to be the board representative of that swearing.
So for August 12th, do you foresee that conflicting at all with our development training?
I think we're closer to the beginning of the school year.
One of us will be there.
One of you, please.
Promise. Promise you. Mike, Teresa's not available. Mr. Patrick's not available.
No, it's good.
Joan, what's your?
I'll defer if you can make it. I think.
I mean, I can, but I'm certainly willing to ask someone else as well. So, okay, I guess it's gonna be me then. Great. I forget. My life is a world of notes. Okay, any further discussion? Are we ready for a vote? All right, Mrs. Fox, I think we're ready.
Okay, we have Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes. Okay. The next item is 9B, Monroe Township donation. Recommend approval to accept $14,000 in donations from Monroe Township. Did I get a first?
I'll move. I'll second.
Okay. First by Mrs. Heatherly, a second by Mrs. Dahl. Any discussion?
Do you have like a picture or can you describe where they're putting this outdoor hoop?
Yes, the middle school students at times go across the driveway. It would be in the grassy area beyond the home run fence from the varsity baseball field. And that's typically an area where they get some exercise and recreation. This area will be a basketball pad, if you will, with a hoop on each side. It's not a full basketball court, I don't believe, but it's a nice outdoor basketball recreation area.
So it's not replacing the volleyball area? is
No,
it? Okay,
no,
awesome. So they have volleyball, some basketball. It's great.
Yeah, and the only time you would have to duck is if somebody hits a home run during a varsity baseball game, but that's typically around dinner time. So there won't be any middle schoolers out there officially as part of the school day.
So it's a very nice and generous donation
Yes.
from Monroe
Yes.
Township, and we thank them.
Yes.
Okay, any further comments? I think we're ready for the vote, Mrs. Fox.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes. Item 9C, additional summer maintenance projects. Recommend approval for the following additional summer maintenance projects. 1, Broadway Elementary emergency repairs to the lintels around the central windows and Broadway cafeteria. And that's in the amount of Midwest Maintenance, $72,000. And number 2, Tipp Stadium retaining wall with railing by restrooms and concession stands. And that's with Bruns General Contracting for $22,438.
I'll move.
I'll second.
First by Mrs. Heatherly, a second by Mrs. Dahl. Any discussion?
Mr. Safai, did we send out any bids for that work?
The way the bid process works is we're part of, I call it a consortium. Their official name is Southwestern Ohio Educational Purchasing Council. And what they do is by being part of this council, that council does the bid processes and gets the contractors for school districts that are member districts. And so we're one of the member districts of that group. And so we don't have to, do all the official processes. They do it for us, and then they recommend appropriate contractors to take care of the work for the school district.
Is there any discussion? I've heard very Midwest Maintenance, heard a lot of great things about them, but that's not really my question. For $72,160, I'm assuming this is going to have quite a longevity in the repair work.
Yes, this is top of the line work. And because it was such a safety concern when we found out about it, we wanted to make sure that it was repaired, in the most, 72 doesn't sound like the most economical, because it sounds like a big number, but for this kind of work, the masonry work to withstand for a long period of time. And some people may ask, it's on the central building, but the areas that have the stone issues that need to be repaired are over top of the cafeteria that is used by Broadway Elementary. And so if things would fall from the second story down on the roof of the cafeteria, at minimum, you're going to have facility issues. But if they would go through the roof, now you have safety issues, some pretty significant levels.
Has there been any time frame on the completion of the work? What's the anticipated completion date?
Well, they put us on the schedule quickly, and they're down there now. They put up the scaffolding to get ready to get started, and they're ready to roll. So they know when we start school. And so our job is to make sure that it's completely ready to go by the time we start school.
So they feel that's realistic. Okay.
So I guess we really have no choice but to approve this, it sounds like, because it's a safety issue. I guess I'm kind of conflicted because we really haven't made a decision as to what we're going to do with the buildings and facilities. I know that we're investigating that right now. We're waiting back for the reports.
Yes.
So I'm guessing that the administration's kind of weighed all this and is recommending this because it's an absolute safety requirement.
Yes, there's definitely a separation between the rocks that is not supposed to, or between the stones that is not supposed to be there. And so it needs to be reconnected.
Plus, I think it was just really timely that we were getting that real-time structural engineering analysis, because that's how this was discovered, if I'm correct.
Yes, they're analyzing the strength and feasibility of the structures moving forward, and they discovered this. And it's not over every window, but it's over those window areas that are above the cafeteria. Some of the other windows, they're stone. I call them facings or facades or whatever. The stone is in place and intact, but these have moved.
I would agree. We don't really have a choice in this. It's a safety issue. It's a timeliness issue because we have schools starting. I am concerned about the amount of money that we're investing, not only in mitigating the mold issue at Broadway and now this structural reinforcement project. Of course, they both need to happen because we need to protect the people that are being educated in that building and the people that work in that building. But again, I hope that this helps to increase awareness of the urgency of addressing our facility needs. And I hope as a board that we can come together and make that our priority moving forward as soon as possible.
Well, oh, I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna say,
Please go ahead.
I was gonna say, we need to be in there and be able to see the windows that we're addressing, the Broadway cafeteria. Because I'm imagining, is that the old central cafeteria? Is that what you're calling the Broadway cafeteria? Okay, so those old windows need to be,
It's the windows
are they
above.
being,
It's the windows above and central. The stones or bricks need to be stabilized so they don't fall into the roof of the cafeteria
Cafeteria that we're
on
using.
Broadway.
and then it says and Broadway cafeteria. So the windows in the Broadway cafeteria also being central windows and Broadway cafeteria. So they're
Yeah.
those, because I mean, they do have like that long bank of windows, so that would make
They have a
sense.
bank of windows. I don't believe that there's any official windows in the cafeteria that need work.
Okay.
It's the upper windows that are over top of the cafeteria.
They could probably be sealed, probably be repainted, but the urgency is
They're above the roof.
yeah, it's preventing the things that are above. The
Is that
windows
where
above.
TSEP is in those classrooms?
TSEP's on the other side of the central building. Yeah, so
So, but-
there's a
so-
TSEP area, there's the area where we're fixing the stones, which is not the TSEP area in central, and the cafeteria and the gymnasium are the parts of central that Broadway uses.
Are they gonna have any issue accessing those windows? I think there's a lot of storage going on in that area, isn't there?
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, you're talking about the repair folks?
Yes.
They're
So they're using
coming in from
scaffolding.
the outside.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
So
working
no,
from the
no
outside. Yeah.
access needed from the inside.
No, they built the scaffolding on top of the Broadway cafeteria roof, and they're working their way up to the stones.
And I have a question. This was part of a piece, of a bigger piece about the report on the structural engineering. Did that final report, I know the time.
It's not here yet.
Okay.
No.
Because I think it's also relevant to add in there that it was stated in there. How did they word it? I thought it was really interesting. The assessment of the building was, what is it, cost, can't be matched by new construction. But do you remember
Yeah,
the exact?
Yeah, there's not a full report release, but there was a comment that that structurally, the way buildings of that era were built, that you can't match, that type of structure with new building. And so that they believe that there's solid structure there to utilize. Now, again, you have the facings and things that you have to address, which are significant, and that's where sometimes, moisture, that's where like a mold issue would come from, and these stones, that's another issue that's on the outside of the structures, but they were complimentary about the structure that's in the older buildings.
The solidness of it,
Yeah, but we don't have,
quality of
we don't have the
materials.
official report
Yes,
yet.
okay.
So that's an unofficial.
I understand. I
comment.
just wanted to balance that out to the public versus the $72,000 expenditure, because I guess it has to be done. I was just really taken back at that comment, how it can't be matched by modern construction so far. Okay. Anything else on the Broadway? Because I wanted to also open up the discussion on the Tipp Stadium.
Respectfully, I'm not gonna add anything at this juncture, because I think it's more related to the repair, but I think I got a few thoughts related to the report and things of that session, or that nature in relation to new business work session August 10th. That's essentially what I was wanting to add, is the facilities portion of it. So I'll reserve those comments at that time.
Tipp Stadium, anyone care to start the discussion first, if any, on that? This is for $22,438, and it's the retaining wall with railing by the restroom and concession stand.
There's an area by the concession stand that is awaiting the completion of the home stands. But there is a drop off in the, I believe it's asphalt, outside that area there. So there is a drop off, and there is some evidence now that some of the dirt on the side of the drop off is actually starting to erode. Yeah. And so we need to, first of all, firm that up so that there is no more potential erosion there. But at the same time, what they're going to do there is going to minimize the drop off. And what they can do is actually put something in there that can be incorporated into whatever the future plans are for the home stands. And so it'll be something that can be a part of the stadium as we move forward. Because once the new stands come in, they'll back right up to there. The drop off is gone. And then it works its way right into that the piece that Bruns will be putting in there right now.
Will this short-term fix address accessibility to the restrooms before the next phase of cleanup? Excuse me.
Okay, I'll have to ask for some more clarification on that. I've only been behind the home stands maybe a handful of times. And accessibility to the bathrooms
Is problematic.
On
In
which
my
side?
opinion.
On which side? The park side or the stadium side?
On the stadium side, I have concerns about the accessibility of people getting into that restroom, given that it's all a gravel embankment. There is
There's
a
no
wheelchair.
wheelchair.
Oh,
If you're in a
Being
wheelchair,
able
you
to
can't get into the restroom from that entrance.
Yeah.
So does that mean someone who needs to use the restroom needs to exit the stadium to go and enter outside of the stadium to use the restroom? I think that's a hardship that is not really reasonable. And if there's anything that this board can do to correct that before, I don't want that to be contingent on Tipp Pride raising the money to move on to that phase, because to me, that's something that we should have an obligation to address.
I agree. And that's what we're doing here. We're addressing this, as a safety need. And so
Sure.
I'll consult with Ms. Hagan and see if we can actually talk to the Bruns folks or even our maintenance group about getting a better surface back there for access to the bathroom.
I suspect it doesn't address accessibility. I think it's just a safety issue.
Well, I was just thinking that as they put it in, as they're firming up the areas around it, was there any plan to do anything with the ground level as they're putting in these supports? But because the supports, I believe the ones I've heard about are concrete. And so that's what's going to be holding the piece in. And so while they're there, if there's anything they could do with the ground surface as well, then maybe we can do two things.
Especially since we don't know when that final phase is expected to occur. That could be next year, or it could be years from now. But we're using that stadium now. It needs to be accessible for the visitors, our students, the people that are attending those functions. And while it is accessible from the exterior of the stadium, if you are enjoying an event inside the school, then you should be able to access the restrooms.
Mrs. Dahl, do you have anything to add?
I mean, I guess the only other thing would be, the plans would probably be updated once you do this, I'm not sure how that's going to impact the plans that they've already drawn up.
Right. Well, and there are some other things, and we'll discuss them first in the facilities committee. But there are some other things that may have impacts on the current architectural drawings, for the state. So we'll have a lot of discussions about that.
My concerns are just an expression of concern. I hope that we can prioritize them. It does not mean I don't think that this motion is not appropriate to move forward with this project. But if you could obtain more information on what the cost would be to address that issue, I think it's a smart thing to do.
I think it's
Mr. Patrick?
something should be addressed, yes.
Any other input?
No, I do not have any.
My input on this is it was brought to my attention, the getting clarity, $22,438. First of all, it's school funds, correct? Okay, so I mean, I didn't know how to answer this, so I'm gonna ask. This is not a temporary fix, this is a permanent fix or part of a piece of what the total fix is going to be. Because I think there was a concern from a resident. This was sort of conflicting. And I wasn't there, so I don't know, but this is conflicting with what Tipp said at one of their recent meetings. Because I think what I understood, they are aware of the situation and want to address it as well. That like a barrier, snow type fencing barrier with caps and posts could also address this. And then for like $300, and then when the final phase is ready to address that, then move into that. So I don't know anything about this.
Well, we worked, because it was mentioned in one of the public comments, this is a city park. And so we involved the city in this discussion as well. And I asked Ms. Hagan to give me a few notes in case I needed them, and I need them.
Okay.
And so it says here, with the retaining wall with railing can be incorporated into an overall plan, or can use it with a new plan if the current plans are revised. Work with the city of Tipp to ensure that this was the best plan for safety and a good mix with future plans, and it makes an investment in the stadium, not just a temporary fix.
Okay, so again, I just want to make sure that what that $22,000 entails, it's going to stay there. That's going to be there. It just may be expanded in even a more elaborate finish too, because right now it's addressing safety. In other words, they're not spending $22,000 and then disassembling that and doing something else in the final.
No.
Okay.
No. That's why I said when the way the plans that I've seen and they have described to me, the home stands would be coming back, and they would actually come back right to where this work is occurring.
Okay.
And so that drop off isn't supposed to be a drop off. The actual stadium is supposed to be where the drop off is, and then you have the walkway behind by the concession stand that would stay intact.
Okay. Any more comments? We're ready for the vote, Mrs. Fox?
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes. Okay, next item 9D, new hires. Recommend approval to employ the following staff for the 21-22 school year pending proper certification and paperwork. And should I read the staff, Mr. Stefani? Okay. So for administrative staff, the Tipp Middle School Assistant Principal is Jason Watercutter. And for the classified staff, again, technical support specialist is Patricia Gross.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, a first by Mrs. Dahl, a second by Mrs. Heatherly. Any discussion?
It's exciting to have these positions, knowing
Yeah.
it makes the school year feel all that more at hand.
Yes, this is the final administrative position. So we have the team intact, ready to move forward, and excited that several are in their offices, and officially their contracts don't begin until August 1st. And so they're here eager to get started and get some background information about their roles and the buildings that they're going to be taking over. And so it's exciting to see them hit the ground running.
So the position that's been vacated by Patty Gross's promotion into this position will be posted, will be expedited. I mean, she plays a pretty critical role, doesn't she, at the middle school?
Yes, we're going to look at it before we post it. We're going to analyze the positions we have and see how we make everything work that we have, and if a posting is needed, then we'll post it.
Okay. Any discussion, any further? Okay, I think we're ready for the vote, please.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes. Motion passes. I guess you're supposed to say that, correct? Motion passes or fails. So I'm gonna get better at this.
Board Docs does, I think they have a little scoreboard when the vote goes in, they said.
It's supposed to be
passes or not.
announcing.
Yes.
All right. So number 9E, coach hiring resolution, the recommended action. Recommend approval of the following resolution verifying that the head high school girls tennis coach position was advertised to all licensed personnel in the Tipp City School District and licensed personnel not employed by the Tipp City School District. Because no qualified licensed candidate has accepted the position, we are recommending a qualified non-licensed candidate for the position.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, first by Mrs. Dahl, second by Mrs. Heatherly, and discussion.
You have a candidate.
Yes,
Great.
so it's the next agenda item.
Tennis season starts now.
Right, and that's, again, if you don't have a licensed candidate, and license means the teacher's license, if you don't have a licensed candidate, you have to make sure that the posting went out so that licensed candidates, whether they're in your school district or outside of your school district, had a chance to apply and interview for this position. If a licensed candidate does not come forward or does not meet your qualifications, then you can go to a non-licensed candidate, which is someone who is not a teacher or doesn't hold a teacher's license, and they could become, as long as they have appropriate credentials, they can become your coach candidate. And so, yes, we do have one, and we're very pleased that over the summer, he stepped forward.
That's great. Okay, Mr. Patrick, yeah, want to add anything? No. Okay, I think we're ready for a vote, Mrs. Fox.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes. Motion passes. Item 9F, supplemental staff.
I'll move. I'll move.
I'll second. Mrs. Heatherly first, Mrs. Zakor second. And discussion.
Appreciate these folks stepping in.
And just for the board, and just for the board's information, you know Amanda Casey, she is the choir director at the middle school and at the high school.
Oh, she has a new name.
Yes.
And then the one above is Casey.
Yes, so
Okay.
what happened is we were in some tough straits for a tennis coach. And when Mr. Kramer sent out another posting inside the district and said, if you know anybody that would make a good tennis coach. And so one of our employees not only submitted somebody as a tennis coach that she knew very well, she agreed to help as the assistant tennis coach to help him, and she would know several of the students, I'm assuming because of her work at the middle school and at the high school.
Great.
I have one question, and I think this is awesome. I'm in favor of both of them. But there's a family relationship between Matt and Amanda Casey, correct? And I'm not an expert on this, but I think that there's certain potential problems that they're related if the person's supervising their subordinate that's a family member. And so are they going to be reporting to someone else versus like for another head coach and assistant coach? I'm guessing they're both direct reports to someone else other than
yes,
the head coach.
Yes, to Mr. Kramer.
Just want to clarify
I would
that.
take that, yeah. Yes, that you're exactly right. If there is a family connection, the direct supervision is not permitted. And so if they were in a position like this where potentially a head coach would supervise an assistant coach, there has to be another direct supervisor appointed. But in this case, the direct supervisor would be Mr. Kramer, the athletic director.
Thank you.
So that the head coach, the assistant coach is not subordinate to the head coach?
Not when it comes to Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
And not in an evaluative sense.
Not an evaluation.
Yeah. For example, if if the head coach gives an assignment and said, here, take care of this for tomorrow's practice,
Yeah.
yes, the assistant coach needs to follow that. But in an evaluative sense, there has to be another person, that's the direct
That
report.
does the actual performance evaluation and, okay,
And that's permitted.
that is.
Yeah, and that's for any position. So, you know, a lot of times I use the example of my position. If I had a family member that was in a district, then no way would that person have to report directly to me. There would be another administrator put in charge of supervising that person, and that gets outside of that family member conflict. So same thing, if a teacher was in a building with a principal that was a family member, somebody else has to be, the supervisor. And so that's actually in board policy, and we set those up that way to meet that board policy.
Okay, any further discussion? I think we're ready for the vote.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Zakor,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
And welcome to Mr. Bowerman to the whole
Yes.
program too, since we were just talking about that.
Thank you to him too.
Oh, did I miss something? Oh, I did. I'm
Well,
so
we're-
sorry. Yeah.
We're mostly just talking about the tennis coaches.
I'm so
but we have
sorry.
Another coach in that list
Scott.
as well.
Supplemental staff, also Scott Bowerman, Tipp High School varsity football volunteer assistant. So I apologize, Mr. Bowerman, absolutely. Okay. Item 9G, work session, August 10th, 2021.
I move to open up discussion on that issue.
I'll second.
The reason I requested this be added is I'd like to have it added to our next work session is probably the primary. I don't know necessarily what we have all set up for that August 10th work session, but I think our facilities should be the primary agenda item. I'm not sure if we will yet have a report back by that point in time, but I think that even if we don't, it'll allow us to provide us kind of set up a timeline of our action items and things we might want to accomplish. The facilities committee's been working very, very hard. Part of that was getting a structural integrity report to see what our options are. And then after that, making recommendations to the board or seeking additional advice from the board. I would urge everyone to wait until the facilities committee's evaluated that before they share anything related to unofficial things in the report, because there's other aspects of the report that may influence the facility committee, which is a group of people, including myself, Mr. Stefanik, and Ms. Hagan, Ms. Robbins, and then at the time, Mr. Stevens. But there's a lot of different variables here at play, and we need to understand all the variables before we say that, Broadway and Central are fine, or they're not. And so I think that work session would be a good time to kind of talk about where we are, where we think we're going to be. And so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I think that given the fact that we've got safety issues that are requiring us to spend $77,000 that we can't avoid without significant liability and risk to our students, our school district, that we really want to kind of make sure that we keep this on our radar and we make it a priority. So for that reason, I would request that we all agree to add that to the agenda. We make it the focus unless there's something more pressing.
I would agree with that. And I would like to add that at the conclusion of our executive sessions tonight, if the board does not make any official action, then I'll be recommending action for that agenda on August 10th as well, for the work session.
What does that mean?
This is a discussion item, correct? That's what I'm-
It is a discussion.
This is a discussion item. Okay, so do we need, is there any reason why it won't be added, Mr. Stefanik? Does Joella need to do like an official action?
No, we just want to make sure we follow the policy for agendas and publishing the content of agendas and making sure that there's no surprises on the agendas. So I just wanted to make that statement publicly, but we might be able to address the issues tonight and not have it carry over to the 10th.
The work session?
So if I understand this correctly, we're talking about August 10th, which we already have on our calendar as a work session.
Yes.
And so what's the purpose of, you're asking that this be an agenda item for that, August 10th?
Simon is suggesting that the primary focus of the agenda for the work session is to focus on facilities and create, what I heard him say was creating a timeline to address facilities.
Depending on what we have back and what we don't, it's going to dictate what we take action. But let's say we don't have the report back from Broadway and Central yet, it's possible. Then that's okay. I think we still need to make it a order of priority. Is like, what's our plan here? But I think we need to set goals and deadlines so that we actually get something done very quickly on facilities. We get a report back, then by that point in time, we want to set a deadline to say, make a decision on whether we're pursuing new facilities, repairing and rehabbing existing facilities, or a hybrid of both. But I'd like to have a board get together and evaluate a timeline on when action items are going to be taken. We can certainly revise that, as things evolve, because you have to be willing to do that. But I think if we fail to put those timelines in place, we're going to have the same problem we've had, is things get pushed over because of the pandemic, things get pushed over because of this. I want to have something that's going to keep this on our radar that we keep coming back and bumping up against, so we can get something moving, so we don't keep getting $77,000 bills.
I would agree, and I think that's the type of accountability that we all agree that we would want as a board, and I think that's listening to what our community is saying too. It's like, this would be something that could unify us, give us some direction as a board. It could also help us focus on answering some of the questions that linger, as far as, they aren't maybe directly related to facilities, but there are timeframes that we need to be mindful of if we are going to do something to either address the facilities with a bond issue, let's say for a new facility, or if we have to put something on the ballot to address the renovation and rehab of our current facilities. So I want us to be mindful that there's information that we need to be gathering and evaluating so that we make that kind of decision in a, with informed consent and consensus with us as a board.
Okay, so everybody's had a turn, correct? Did you comment?
I just wanted, I thought, my only question was I was pretty sure that we were going to do it. I didn't know if Joanne had to have like an official thing, but you're saying we will talk about facilities on.
It's an agenda item for the August 10th work session. Yeah. Also, I'd like to add on to that. I think it's a very worthwhile agenda item. I'm not sure that it should be the priority, because that's just 9 days before school opens, and a lot can happen between now and then. One thing I would like, that I think could be very helpful in kind of assessing all the options and moving forward, is to have more ancillary information, such as, I was thinking about this. We have an option, renovate, go new. We have land. And I think it would be very helpful. And I know Mr. Patry once said, being on the facilities committee, that his objective was to provide the board with as much information as they needed. I would love to see some type of metric analysis based on our recent population census. Where's our elementary kids right now? Is the bulk of them going west, out that way from Cedar Grove, Rosewood, Windmere? I think there's a couple of Curry Branch. Is there still a respectable base downtown around Broadway? Are those kids grown? And, how are things trending in terms of demographics in Tipp City? Because we do have a lot of these housing developments. I think it's really key. I know, and I'm just off the cuff, I know a lot of the younger generation that with their kids are looking for those more open floor plans, et cetera. And I know that's kind of what they're catering to in the newer housing structures. So number one, where is the population? Is it shifting? So that gives us sort of a mindset of, do we consider that Nevin public land? Secondly, the traffic. the bus, because I was thinking about this, we just have such an opportunity, and that busing is important. Those buses are 4 times a day. It may sound, even if you cut out a mile or 2 a day, times all the buses, then just the liability of sitting on that bus and the time on that bus, and then the repair of those buses. So all I'm saying is, like, if we could start putting the jigsaw pieces together, have some credible data to look at it, and then maybe things at Broadway will be dictated to us, or maybe it won't. Maybe we'll have all this data and we'll say, well, we still have to move this direction. But I don't think it's a comprehensive and fair conversation without getting a lot of this data organized now. This has nothing to do with the structures. We can start pulling all this out and compiling it now. So I think that would be much more efficient at some of these sessions moving forward to start having that. Does anybody else have that?
I was just, listening to everybody's comments. I think that what we need to have is the facilities almost needs to be like a continual agenda item for updating for things that come up. Underneath that, at the next work session, creating that timeline on the agenda to give ourselves markers, to keep hitting goals, to moving it forward. Some of those things can include, your attendance trends. And Melanie, I don't know if Dave shared this with you. He was able to get in contact with some group that gave us attendance projections based on housing and building. And that's one thing that we used a lot. Another thing too is a way to gather feedback and ideas, concerns from the community. We've talked about surveys, and really, using the timeline format to be serious about who's going to conduct these surveys. Are we going to do it? If we're going to do it in-house, who's going to be in charge of getting feedback, pushing information out, gathering it back up, analyzing it, and making it digestible for us to make decisions, again, to have a timeline to move it forward. I think all of these, those seem to be like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major things that we talked about can be put on that agenda for August. So facilities, timeline, attendance trends, and a way to gather feedback.
So the reason I was asking to have that at their work sessions to discuss these items then, and then that can provide us feedback that we can bring back to the facilities committee. A lot of things discussed here have been on the radar of the facilities committee, but before going too far down the line on those issues, we need to be able to understand where we stand related to the safety of certain buildings and whether they're even feasible to be rehabbed and remodeled. So step 1 was getting a structural integrity report done. After that, then it's to get a financial comparison of new facilities versus rehab and remodel. In my opinion, fiscal responsibility is extremely important to me. And so I think that what's important for us to understand is what things are going to cost, et cetera, before we make decisions related to relocating, et cetera. And all that comes into play. But I guess that I think that's what that work session would be designed for. So it'd be great if everybody comes with all that information. I can take that back to the facilities committee. We could even invite Ms. Hagan and Mr. Stefanik to participate in more detail. But I think the way I'm envisioning this is that happens at the work session this evening.
And there's a lot of information out there from the last bond that I don't know if everybody's been given full access to it, that you might want to shoot out before that meeting so they can see the results of surveys and stuff that we've done prior. Feedback that we got from Broadway, that area around there was really critical to making choices and decisions.
Dr. Kump and Mr. Pfister left quite a bit of documentation from the previous bond and studies, facility studies, and so we have some information.
That PK or the K3 was in 2015, I believe. And so a lot of this housing development wasn't up and running yet.
Right.
And so I think that even you can probably pull out a lot from the census bureaus, or we can go to the city. And I like the idea of Mrs. Dahl keeping this sort of as a rolling agenda item each meeting. But I do disagree with Mr. Patry that I think the time is now I think it could have been all year, start gathering these key pieces of information. Knowledge is power. Whether it may not dictate you this way or that way, but it can certainly help sort of guide you where you think you might want to go or have to go. And so I see no need to wait till August 10th. I would like to see the committee person bringing forth this data about demographics and growth. There was another thing I was thinking about. Oh, shoot, so sorry.
I'm not sure if that last part is really limited to the facilities committee. I know that in
Excuse me,
2000.
Joe.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. The other thing I think is a really fair question, and I think that the community deserves to ask it, is are we being visionary going to go with the pre-K program? A lot of districts, and I'm not invested one way or the other, but when we're talking about facilities or old location, new location, let's talk a little even more comprehensive. Are we going to do PK through 12? Is that a start point in a dialogue? And pros, con, I don't know that much about it. I like to get more educated, and I believe you've been in a district with PK. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, we wrote a grant to the state of Ohio to create a preschool program in a district that previously was K-12, and now they're currently pre-K to 12, and it's been going on for 13 years. And so you've got to decide if that's a need in your community, and if it's something that would enhance your school district offering and your student preparedness for kindergarten.
Well, also now, and do you offer it in your building, whether it's renovated or new? Do you offer that PK? And then the second question is, do you staff it internally, or do you contract it out and have it there? So these questions to me can begin now. There's no reason to wait, and I'll start gathering that data. That was it for me.
Well, the only thing I'll do, and hand it over to Ms. Heatherly, between now and August 10th, it's not a big window of time. And so to give people extra assignments as we're prepping for the start of the school year might be a little bit tough, but we can gather what we can between now and August 10th.
It's just beginning.
But yes, but as we create the list of needs for
Right.
data and information, then we can put that out over a little bit longer. And then that plays into the timeline piece, so we want this much data. How long do we have to collect it and then present it out and just make sure things are moving forward?
And to just kind of reiterate Simon's point is creating that timeline. We do need all of the metrics and we need to make all those decisions, but I think we need a timeline to move us towards the goal.
Right.
And so if that was something that we accomplished at the timeline to have these decisions made by or to consider them, that'd be good.
And then, I'm so sorry, go ahead, Joe.
That was going to be my comment, is that I hope that we can capture the questions and not get so caught up in the answers or the opinions of the answers, just so that we can identify what the questions are that need to be answered, and then to determine what the answer is going to be, because then you're able to publicize the choices and options to solicit input as far as which one are you more supportive of. So it's a series of steps. And so while the pre-K option is something that you might want to discuss, I was just going to suggest that I believe in 2019, we had a 10-year study completed that gave us a lot of demographics related to the projected growth of Tipp City. If that's a starting point to just look at, that's something that is probably in a binder. And it's probably something that might give us information. And then maybe the decision be made whether we recommend it be updated. Is the information from 2019 vastly different compared to the amount of growth that Tipp City has seen in just that 2-year period?
I don't disagree with any of this. All I'm saying is I get real antsy. I'm really project driven and results driven. And what I'm saying is there's nothing holding me back. And I'm not saying it has to be executed by this date and formalized by to look this way. You can, while it's up here, start thinking about where we're going to get some of these metrics and what that's going to look like. So we don't come August 10th and say, okay, now we decide we're going to go get metrics. No, we can start, it's all piecing together. The other thing, and I know this is I'm just gonna say it, is we have to be sensitive to what the voters will accept. I totally get that, but doesn't hurt to put it as a discussion. Is this board building? You've got 3 more, what is the plan on here? I mean, look at these meetings and where people sit. And so I'm really frugal and conservative. I'm a penny pincher. I know how to do that. I worked my way through college. But I'm just saying that, isn't it discussion worthy? Just, it's something. Because even if you're gonna incorporate it into one of the existing buildings or this or that. So PK through 12, what about this board building? Where's the growth? I just think it's all relevant. And it's free to talk about.
I was just saying, it's free to talk about.
Well, again, I would caution us not to get too far into the discussion of those, but I do think that we could be mindful of homework to bring on the 10th, which is, what are the questions that people need answered by this board? So then they can make some informed decisions about which options they would support. So are we going to have OFCC money? What's going to happen to the Broadway property? These are just some of the questions that people have, and they hold their vote contingent on whatever the response is, as far as, you tell me what you're going to do to answer my question. What are you going to do about the traffic? What are you going to?
Exactly.
So those are all the questions that need to be answered so that we can formulate the direction of what's going to happen to facilities in conjunction with the reports that I think Simon is cautioning us not to make too many decisions on before we get that completed report.
But again, you make a great point, OFCC. Doesn't matter what this building OFCC's over there. They've got their programs. The more we learn about what currently is available and what their funds currently look like, because I have no idea after COVID. So yeah, these are all parts and pieces. Anything, Mrs. Stowe, you want to add?
I think this is good.
Mr. Patrick, you want to add anything else?
No, the sole purpose of my bringing up is just add it to the agenda item of the next work session so we could talk about it then.
Okay. Anything else? Now, that doesn't require that's not an action item, is it? IG? Citizen comments, we used up our time the first time around, so we don't have any on here. Nope. Okay. So now we're going to go in upcoming meetings, excuse me. The next work session meeting will take place on Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at the Board of Education building beginning at 5. And then the next regular board meeting will take place on Monday, August 23rd, beginning at 6 p.m.
May I add something to that? Sure. I get some clarification when the training is, being recommended and what time.
Yeah, well,
I've just sort of lost track.
yeah, we put some Saturdays out there, and the Saturday options in August are out because we couldn't get all 5 on either of the Saturdays. And so now I'm looking for, I would say, during the last two and the third weeks of August, any weeknights that you can offer, I would say from 4 to 7:30 or 4 to 8, timeline in there, a 4-hour time slot.
So which weeks again? I'm sorry.
We're starting like the 16th. So the 16th through the 31st, because I'd really like to get it in August.
I can do it any night that week of the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th. I can do it any of those nights.
Well, and what I'm asking is not to finalize it tonight, because I don't have Mr. Britton's schedule. So if people could just send me an email with your available dates, and I'll see if I can match up five dates first. And if I can get 5 people on the same date, then I'll offer those dates out to Mr. Britton as options. And see if we can get it tidied up here in August.
So the meeting on the 10th is at 5 o'clock, not 4 o'clock.
Right, that's a 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Regular work session.
And the agenda is going to be a regular work session, and
Yes.
we just talked about some of the agenda items.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And now we're going to email you some dates that were available between August 16th and the 31st for a 4-hour block,
Yes.
preferably in the evening over a weekday. So what I heard you say?
Yes. I mean, if people had, if we get 5 people during the workday, I would think we can, but if we get 5 people during the workday, I'd be open to that, but I think we're looking at evening time slots.
16th through the 31st evening, and should be counting on how many, about 4 hours,
I'd say
4 to 5 hours,
No, Mr. Britton said at least 3, and he said 4 would be
4
very
hours.
good.
Okay,
So 3 to 4.
and we want those times, those dates emailed to you, Mr. Stefan, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we covered upcoming meetings. The next item is 12A, adjourning to executive session. We'll be adjourning to executive session for purposes authorized under Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22G4 to prepare, conduct, and review negotiation of bargaining session with public employees and
G1.
G1 to discuss a complaint against a public employee or official.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Do we anticipate any action, and are we inviting anybody in?
I did not have anyone on the invitation list. Is that the way you understood it, Mr. Sir?
I need to be there for G4,
Okay,
and that's the board's decision whether I am participating in G1 or not. I have not passed G1.
okay. I don't go with G1 either, but G4.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's the extent of who would be in our executive session. And at this point, I'd say we're not anticipating official action.
I'd say it's possible though that we could take action after item 12C, correct?
Oh, anything's possible, yeah.
So it's my understanding that at the conclusion, when we come back into session, any board member can bring a motion
Absolutely,
Yes.
or open up a topic
absolutely.
at that point.
And Ms. Fox will have to, in that 12A, we'll have to revise the motion to match the motion that we put here, because it still just has G4. So we'll
Yeah,
have
so
to put G1 in there.
So do we have a first and second on going into executive session?
Who moved first?
Mrs. Fox, do you have any record of that? Did someone?
I put Dalton Heatherly, was that?
Okay, Mrs. Dahl
Heatherly.
first and Mrs. Heatherly second?
Sure.
We'll go with that.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
And for our guests in the audience, typically, we would ask you to stay here in the audience seats, and then we would go take executive session. But this is the executive session room as well as the general meeting room. And so the way the building is soundproofed or not, that we'd have to ask that people exit the building. And if you wanted to stick around to see if there was action after the executive session, we'd have to come find you, outside in the parking lot or whatever, if you wanted to stick around. We just don't have a public area that is, we don't have an area that the board can be in that's soundproof enough in this building for other people to be in the building while they're in executive session.
Sorry, that's why I put it on the list. Maybe. You. Brad, tell me when we'll see it there. Okay.
Good. Go ahead and start it up then.
Okay, welcome back. It is now 9, I can't see on the clock. What is that? 28. 9:28 PM and we're back in regular session.
I would like to motion that we add item H under new business, which would be statement to TCEA.
Second? I'll second. Okay, at first, you want to read that again? Did you capture that motion?
So currently, there's no motion, so I have to make this. I'm not sure where I put that.
Can you go back to new business and put it as
Correct.
item H under new business, or is that section
Okay.
closed out?
Well, so no, I would stop here. Agenda. New business.
Did you check, was the last item G? Was it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
I think I just pulled H out as kind of a
you were right.
general area of the alphabet. I would say if there's any area that it's easier just to create a new item, then you can do that drag thing.
Yeah.
That you
So
can do,
new
you can drag it to
business.
new business.
New business, letter H. And
Titled statement to TCEA is the title.
this is public access, and this is we're taking action.
Actually, to add this, right now, it starts out as a discussion. So just put a discussion item.
Okay.
And so then if you wanted to call the roll to see if people wanted to add that item to the agenda, then we'll be done with that motion. And then they
So
can.
it is a motion. So
The motion just to amend the agenda and add that, yes.
now, when I'm adding the item, I'm motioning to approve the item. So there's no place for me to amend the agenda to vote on amending it. I'm just adding it. And then we're voting on it, correct?
We're voting to add an item to the agenda under.
So just, you know what, just
So I'm adding the item.
call the roll to add the agenda item, and then we'll figure out how to format board docs to get it in there. Get this vote in there.
Okay.
Just take the roll on paper for now, and then we'll figure out how to do it in board docs.
Okay, yep.
Because there'll be another motion that will fit into board docs better.
Okay.
Or potentially another motion.
Just gonna take notes. Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Daughtry,
Yes.
and Zakor.
Yes.
So now I'm just gonna add this.
Yeah, so you added it, and so now it's a discussion item, and now the board can take up the discussion.
Okay, does anyone like to start the discussion?
Well, we had some business that we needed to revisit, and that's why I was glad that we could bring it back to tonight's meeting so that we could reopen the subject of issuing a statement to TCEA. Historically, we missed the opportunity to meet their deadline on June 15th. And I'm hoping that we can craft a response tonight and see where that goes and see if we can issue that statement then to them. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would add too that I'm glad that we're discussing this. In the past, I initially had voted no to have a public statement, but I think that, I'm glad we're revisiting this issue and we're going to discuss it further. I would also add that I know that the TCA provided us a deadline, and that's not an important deadline, but I think that logistically it's very difficult, especially when we're talking about things that are that important, to meet deadlines sometimes. And whatever occurs tonight, if anything, that I hope the TCEA understands that and gives us a little grace for maybe not meeting their response time. It certainly wasn't because this board wasn't working hard to understand their concerns and discuss them. And then now hopefully there's going to be some type of resolution, and hopefully that's satisfactory. If not, it is what it is. But I hope that the TCA understands this board's been working very hard to address those concerns and hear those concerns and think about it and discuss it in ways that provides a meaningful response. And hopefully if there is a response, they focus on the response rather than the timing of that response.
Well, I'd like to recommend a response, a statement to TCEA, if I may read it. It's a fact of life that misunderstandings can occur between teachers' unions and boards of education. It is the desire of the Tipp City Schools Board of Education to move forward in conjunction with the Tipp City Education Association in preparing for a new school year and working hard together to ensure all students' success. That's my recommendation.
I'll second that. Is that your recommendation or motion?
It's my recommendation. I mean, I can move that be the statement.
I would move that we adopt that statement. I agree with it.
So I'd be at first,
And I'll be the
and
second.
Mrs. Heatherly's a second. Is there any discussion on that?
Yeah, I think that's a nice statement, Ann. I think that when you're dealing with a lot of moving parts and components, especially when it deals with contracts and things of that nature, and how to communicate with each other and things of that nature, that it's very easy to kind of get lost in who's right, who's wrong, and then that's just my opinion often leads us to get into the weeds and focus on being right and being wrong. I think that the TCA appears to have made some overtures to work together and come to an understanding. I think that statement reflects that we want to move together forward to focus on the district. And I think that's what's most important at this time. So I like that statement a lot.
Any other comments?
No, let's get ready for the school year.
So I think we're ready for a vote, Mrs. Fox, as to content of this statement as a statement to TCEA from the board.
And I'm just writing these down because until I change the agenda again. So, because we had it as a discussion item, right? So I can just change it to an action, and that's all I need to do.
No, that the discussion, the motion to open discussion related to that was a separate item. And then this is going to be a new item under a motion to make a public statement to the TCA.
Yeah, this would be a new action item.
A new action item that's been moved and seconded by, I believe, Ms. Heatherly and Ms. Dahl.
Mrs. Zakor and Mrs. Heather.
Okay, forgive me.
And so the motion is to accept this statement as a statement to TCEA.
Of the board.
From the board.
Let me go back into the agenda here. That's where I need to do my change.
If it helps, the last one that was a discussion item was statement to TCEA. If you want to make the very next one, which would be letter I, board statement, then you just have you have two different titles, and then the board statement one can be the action one. And the statement to the TCA would be the discussion one.
Give me just a moment.
When Brad Bush issued this to me, I wanted to make sure I was taking care of our equipment properly.
Okay. So I've added it as an action, but if I could, Vice President Zakor and Mr. Patry, can you just clarify on the statement? So right now it just says statement to TCE.
Yeah, TCE.
But I want just a little more specific. So this is to a motion for approval.
Yes.
Continue.
You should have motion of approval, motion to approve. Board statement. In response to the TCA resolution.
So I thought maybe there'd be more specifics. Motion. And this is only because now it brought me a whole blank slate
Right.
to type in. So I want to make sure this motion is correct.
Yes.
And that's all we're, no more specifics in the motion.
No, because I think the specifics come when the board.
Board statement and
releases
response.
Yeah, when the board releases the statement to the TCA, the people getting the specifics first should be the TCA. Then it becomes a public document.
Okay.
The TCA has to get it first.
So logistically, how will that happen? Yeah, I just read. Would it be all right if Mrs. Zakor emailed the TCEA president with this statement?
No, I think since it's just handwritten now and in rough form, I think what we do is, if the board would entrust me, I can type it up on letterhead. And then if you would like it to be a communique from Ms. Zakor directly to Ms. Junker, we could do it that way.
Is that consistent with our agreement with the TCEA, or does it have to go through special channels? How's that work?
Since we're voting on it as a board agreed statement, I like the idea of you typing it on Tipp City letterhead as a statement from the board to the union. And you can
deliver through you.
Yeah.
Right, I don't, yeah.
Yeah, I know I would check on it. I know I'm a conduit for information from them to you. And if it's the other way as well, then I communicate it.
I think it makes sense to have in our letterhead that you present it pursuant to whatever the requirements are of our agreement.
Of the contract. I'll look it up in my office after the meeting.
Okay, and the motion was moved by
Zakor,
Mrs.
seconded by
Zakor and
Heather.
Mrs. Heather.
Yes. That's battery pack.
We're ready for the vote?
We're ready for the vote.
Yes.
Okay. Vice President Zakor?
Yes.
Heatherly?
Yes.
Dahl?
Yes.
Mr. Patry?
Yes.
All right.
Is it time for Ms. Dahl's famous motion?
I'm motion we adjourn this meeting.
1 second.
Dahl?
Any discussion?
Sorry,
Any discussion?
leave that open, right?
Let's vote.
Okay.
That's the discussion.
So we got Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you folks for sticking around.
Thank you for
Really
sticking around,
interesting,
everyone.
This is
Thank you.
really cool stuff. Thank you for that.
Thank you.